Well, I asked, where's the beef? Let's call this for what this is. Oh my God! They are so hopelessly woke. How dare you? That is the intellectual capital of the left today. Give me a break. You are now watching the Daily Roundup.
Hello to all of our viewers at home and my wonderful BC correspondent colleague, Drea Humphrey. You are joining us on our daily live stream. Today is Wednesday, June 21st, and unfortunately, I don't know what national day it is. I should probably take a chip off the old Menzies block and know something like that, but it just came to me as I was introducing our stream and kind of like memory holing that this would be a typical time that Menzies would pull one of his famous Menzies stunts, whatever day it is today, apart from June 21st. But anyway, nonetheless, Drea, how are you doing over there?
I'm doing good. Yes, you're right. Menzies is full of very useful information. But yeah, I'm doing good out here. Happy. It's been a long time. You and I used to do the show together, once a week or something, but we just, I guess our calendars haven't aligned. So good to work with you and have everybody else tune in. Likewise,
I was excited to revamp our kindled stream romance. Yeah, I guess when we changed things, we pivoted a little bit in the new year, starting in January. So that just kind of fell to the wayside. But anyway, we're here now, and we have some really fun topics to chat with you about today. So if you're just joining us from home, it's our daily live stream, or our daily stream, where we provide commentary and go through some of the most newsy items in the day. And we're streaming on a few different platforms. So Rumble, Getter, Odyssey, and the censorious one, YouTube. I don't think we'll get into any nitty gritty today where we need to self-censor, which is an unfortunate state of affairs in, I guess, all Western nations at this time, and anyone who tunes into YouTube, whether that be worldwide or otherwise. And Drea, do you want to tell our viewers a little bit about how they can engage with us directly?
Yes, well, kind of leading away from what along with what you just said, unlike YouTube, where they demonetized us and you can't participate fully in the live chat feature here, Rumble and Odyssey make it so that you can be a part of the show and we are not punished for doing so. So if you live chat on those options, there's a little example of how to do that below. But with the donation of $5 or more, you can weigh in to the subjects that we're talking about, and we make an effort to read those. And of course, the donations go to help the many costs it takes to run Rebel News without taking money from the Trudeau government. So thank you for everybody who's going to be a part of the show doing that.
Great way to make sure that we can continue to speak truth to power and not bite the hand that feeds when we are accountable to only our viewers and our donors and not the government or any of their affiliates. So that's always a good time. Okay, so first and foremost, we have a video to share with you from James O'Keefe, the former, I guess, CEO he was of, why can't I not think of the name? This happened to me yesterday too. I had so many things.
Project Veritas.
Thank you, Drea. Yes, Project Veritas. He's now gone on and started OMG Media Group, I guess, the O'Keefe Media Group. So yeah, what a fitting name.
Yeah, totally.
He just got a BlackRock recruiter on film. So it's an 11+ minute clip, and we have we're going to share the first 2 minutes with you. And then, of course, if you'd like to go watch the clip in full for yourself, it's on Twitter. But let's just start, I guess, right off the top with this clip of this BlackRock recruiter.
They don't want to be in the news. They don't want people to talk about them. They don't want to be anywhere on the radar.
Why not?
I don't know, but I suspect it's probably because it's easier to do things when people aren't thinking about it. All of these financial institutions, they buy politicians. You can take this big ton of money, and then you can start to buy people. I work for a company called BlackRock.
Meet Serge Varley, a recruiter at BlackRock.
Let me tell you, it's not through who's the president. It's who's controlling the wallet. So it's
and who's that?
The hedge funds, BlackRock, the banks. These guys want campaign financing. Yep, you can buy your candidates. Obviously, we have the system in place. First, there's the senators, and these guys are cheap. You got 10 grand, you can buy a senator. I can give you 500K right now, no questions asked.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this. We're done.
Does like everybody do that? Does BlackRock do that?
It doesn't matter who wins.
You're still gonna.
They're in my pocket at this point.
Here's Serge Varley on how good war is for BlackRock's business.
Do you have any thoughts on the Ukraine-Russia war?
Yeah, I mean, I do have thoughts.
What are they?
Ukraine is good for business. You know that, right? I'll give an example. Russia blows up Ukraine's grain silos. Price of wheat's gonna go mad up. Ukrainian economy is tied very largely to the wheat market, global wheat market. Prices of bread, literally everything it goes up and down. This is fantastic if you're trading. Volatility creates opportunity to make profit. War is real good for business. It's exciting when goes wrong, right? BlackRock manages 20 trillion. It's incomprehensible numbers.
BlackRock Serge Varley says all of this is above a normal person's understanding.
You're like an undercover reporter. I don't know. No people don't give a shit. This is beyond them. The whole thing of like domination from a concept is just so interesting.
I love how he says that the normal people wouldn't care about this kind of stuff. And I think BlackRock maybe is starting to feel threatened because normal people, i.e. the plebs, the little guys, people like yourself and I, are starting to care and to pay attention and to recognize like that old adage, follow the money, I think is just becoming increasingly more and more apparent. And people are starting to dig into these companies, these oligarchs, and follow that trail. And all like the vast majority of roads leads back to BlackRock and Vanguard.
Yeah, it's insane. And I know as a journalist, you do this, I do this. That's one of the main things we do when we're trying to present you a story. In order for us to better understand it, we follow the money. And you're right, now, as people are becoming more aware with things like government overreach and just things that don't seem to make sense anymore, people are starting to do that as well. At the beginning of the video, you hear that recruiter say, they don't want to be on the news. They don't want to be talked about. So that has to change. But this is a huge story. Of course, I haven't yet seen anybody in the state preferred media covering it. I wonder why.
So it's interesting you bring that up, Drea, because in the remainder of his clip, he actually goes to talk about the mainstream media and how they kind of time the releases of certain things like the volatility in the markets and for trading. And as soon as it hits the mainstream, that's like the go for some of these people to immediately sell or trade or buy, and like to do the opposite of what some of these top financial advisors advise the general public to do. If you do the opposite, that's how you'll actually make money. And so this is really like the corporate interest side of the ruling elites and a little bit of an inside peek into how they do business. And I think the plan for OMG and James O'Keefe is to release additional footage. He says there that he had an interaction with Sergio, I think it was, this recruiter. So I'm really excited to see what they release next. And I think O'Keefe had sent out an email like, I'm not suicidal, just as an FYI, because we've seen what happens to these people that expose these huge conglomerate trillionaires. That's with a T, he said.
Yeah. Well, we got to pray for him because, like I said, this is a big story. Something that stuck out to me is also when the guy says, senators are cheap. You got $10,000. You can buy yourself a senator. Now, it just reminds me, again, if we go back to the average everyday people like ourselves, outside of news, people aren't paying a whole lot of attention to senators, but every once in a while they pop up. I know there's a senator out here in BC who pops up when it comes to defending China about certain things like the Muslim Uyghurs and things like that don't quite make sense. So there's a lot of things that were mentioned in there that are very interesting. And what you said reminds me also about the comments he made about the war, how war is profitable. I mean, there is a lots of information about that with previous wars about how, different sides of it have profited. But he's saying, the way that the wheat is structured, people know when they can make a profit and when they can't. So it's time to keep our eyes wide open and be aware of this stuff for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the journalist also in there asks something along the lines of, like, how can the news media take a side in a war? And he basically is just like, well, it's propaganda. Like, just so nonchalant. Just, it's clear and evident to these people what they're doing. He's saying himself verbatim that it's propaganda. And then when people come to me and, say things like, oh, the mainstream media is trustworthy and they're part of the Trusted News Initiative. And it's like, you need to take off the rose-colored glasses and have a look at what's really being spewed at you and gather news from various sources and make up your own mind. That's the unfortunate part of the news, is it used to just be, we're going to share what the news is, and then you form your own opinion. And now it's like the opinion's formed for you and shoved down your throat. And that is, like, almost verbatim the definition of propaganda.
Exactly. And I mean, we let people know that we're filling the gap of bringing the public the other side of the story that isn't getting covered. We let you know that that's our commitment to you. Whereas state preferred media pretends that they're this neutral source giving you all sides of the story. And if that was true, Rebel News would not exist. It's as simple as that. So, yeah.
I know we're a little bit ahead of schedule, which is
how do we do that so quick?
But we're going to go to a quick ad break. Actually, maybe before we do the ad breaks, I think we'll throw to the Rebel News store in the ad break, and for a limited time, I think until June 30th, you can check out all of our fun Canada Day designs, and you save automatically 20% off of the swag there. You can also use our journalist code. So mine, which you probably would prefer, is Tamara10, Tamara 10. And so if you want any other swag that's not specific to Canada Day, which even our Canada Day swag isn't really specific to Canada Day. Like, I think you could still wear it at other times.
Especially I've got the flags on my car. I have the flags on my car all year long now at this point, because we have to remind people what is great about this nation. So definitely it's not a one-day-a-year shirt anymore.
No, and that all-inclusive flag, right? The Canada flag. So yeah, and if you want any of the other gear, you can use code Tamara10 to save 10% off of your order. And anything that is in the store under the Canada Day section is an automatic 20% off. So fun way to support, again, our independent journalism, help keep the lights on and our studio up and running, while also sporting some sassy swag, and perhaps even being able to sport a Rebel in the Wild. I always appreciate that when I'm like, hey, I've seen that shirt before. And it's fun to be recognized and also see other people out in the wild.
Just real quick, I had one gentleman tell me he was wearing a Rebel shirt and he ran into me and he said, sometimes people come up to him and say, I appreciate the work you do. So thanks so much. So you might even get some extra love wearing it.
You never know. Rebel viewers are truly the best viewers.
They are.
I think the pandemic really showed that. There were so many interviews that I did with people who were, facing injustice or losing their jobs or whatever was happening to them that was negative. I would have people reach out to me, be like offering jobs to people, or there was one story in particular where I featured a pilot in training, and I think it was about the vaccine passport. He was being prevented access to his classes to finish off his training, and someone reached out to me that had their own private airplane school and flight training school, and that he got in touch with them. I put them in touch after this gentleman reached out to me, and he completed his training. And
that's great.
He thought that his whole life was going to be ruined because his career was stolen from him, and the airline industry was a total mess in 2020. So Rebel viewers really are. It's so fun to see people out in the wild, because I find that they're just the most supportive, lively, fun people.
It's like family.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, let's run to a quick ad break, and then we're going to come back, and I think we're going to chat about this Titanic sub that's looking dire.
progressives across this country are going out of their way to erase Canada's national identity, whether it's canceling fireworks or canceling Canada Day altogether. If there's one thing that these folks hate, it's patriotism. So why not support our independent journalism and stick it to the progressives who would love to cancel Canada Day by going to rebelnewsstore.com and purchasing some of our incredible Canada Day themed gear, like this shirt I'm wearing right now. Again, you'll be supporting our important work and you'll be sticking up for Canada's national identity, rejecting progressive cancel culture, and saying, no, we are indeed Canadian. Again, go to rebelnewsstore.com.
All right.
So this is a crazy story. This Titanic sub. So this is a really like not this submarine that it's not really like a formally licensed. I think there was a lot of corners cut in the development of this particular pocket submarine, like a mini. So this particular article comes from the National Post, and it's Titanic sub live update of the U.S. Coast Guard press conference. I think any time that might actually be ongoing. I think for what but this submarine housed 5 people, and they paid $250,000 each to go and try to get a stand view of the Titanic wreckage. So they're now missing off of a remote area off of the North Atlantic Ocean. And so a growing number of aircraft and ships from the U.S. and Canada searched yesterday, for a submersible vessel carrying 5 people that disappeared on its way to the wreckage of the Titanic. And so the sub's air supply, it notes in this article, is expected to run out at around 6 a.m. Eastern Thursday, tomorrow morning.
Yeah, that's
and then there's a couple
scary part of it all.
Updates. Yeah, and there's a lot of speculation online on social media that the vessel is probably already imploded. The pressure down there, they're going like 13,000 feet underwater. So it becomes like a reverse, a negative pressure.
Yeah. Well, this might be a good thing. Oh, sorry. I think there's a lag on the sound. So sorry to interrupt. I thought you had paused. Go on.
Am I back now? I was having technical issues yesterday. I think it's my rural internet. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So continue.
Great. Drea, sorry if that happens. We'll have to get you to just take over, I guess. But so the U.S. Coast Guard is holding a news conference on this. I think currently it started at 1 p.m. Eastern. And I don't know how much you heard of what I was saying before, but the oxygen in the submarine is expected to run out by 6 a.m. tomorrow, Thursday morning.
And you were saying that it looks like it may have, or most people are thinking already imploded. I was going to say this might be a good thing to weigh in. Would this be something any of you listening would participate in, taking a submarine, going down, looking at the wreckage of Titanic? I mean, that's something probably I would be terrified of, let alone use $250,000 of the dollars I don't have to go. I believe there is a billionaire who's on board as well. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? So yeah, this is horrible. I mean, I'm hoping for a miracle out of there. But when you say there was some corners cut, that's very interesting.
Yes.
What did you mean on that? Yeah.
We have another article to share with you. So this one comes from the New York Post, and it's Titanic tour CEO first and foremost, there's another part of this story. He didn't hire any 50-year-old white guys because they were not inspirational, apparently. Mm-hmm. And so instead, he hired other people without military experience, is what this article kind of alludes to. Right. And it shows some photos here down So the CEO says, I wanted our team to be younger, to be inspirational, and I'm not going to inspire a 16-year-old to go pursue marine technology, but a 25-year-old, who's a sub pilot or a platform operator or one of our techs can be inspirational. So right off the bat, because they were trying to be radical and progressive and not hire old white dudes, they were cutting corners.
With
right?
experience.
Right. Credentialed people in their field and line of work, even though they're maybe old and white, well, they probably could have brought some tangible experience and expertise to the table. But and this is the result, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So you can see in these photos of this article, he shows off the $30 video game controller used to navigate the now lost submarine. It's like literally a PlayStation controller.
Yeah.
A video game controller.
It's not looking so cool now, is it? I mean, it's so horrible. And not only is it, ageist, if you will, but it's specifically against white. So middle-aged white people in particular. Like, who's to say that a middle-aged white man can't be inspirational? It's so sad to see stuff like this.
Well, and isn't that textbook racism?
It is textbook racism, but of course, don't you know, Tamara, white people can't experience racism.
No, I guess not.
But yeah, no, this is really sad all around.
Well, and I mean, he wanted the team to be inspirational, but I wonder how inspired all of those on board are feeling currently now that they're in this predicament. And like you mentioned, I think I saw somewhere else on Twitter, a former Navy SEAL, maybe it was, I can't remember, but they said, it'll be by the grace of God, some sort of miracle needs to happen to get this submarine back up to the air. So I pray that happens, but it's not looking very good.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I don't know what rock I was under for 2 days. I just found out about this last night and I was like, oh my gosh, so shocked. But let's hope that miracle comes. I think now we're moving on to an interesting story, the follow-up to Jordan Peterson situation, or did I? Yeah, we're going on. If you guys recall, we did a campaign, I believe it's savepeterson.com, because like many concerned about freedom of expression and freedom of speech, they were concerned about his plight, which was his college coming after him for tweets. Now, these were tweets about his own opinions, and the complaints that came in from the tweets were not complaints from his patients who use his counseling services or anything like that, which is one of the main things that I hope they're going to be talking about there. Many of you have, I think, signed a petition there. But today is the beginning of the hearing over this situation. And there is, I think we've got some live tweets that are coming out of that hearing from Christine Van Gien. She is with the Canadian, I should know this. I think it's CFF, if I'm right.
Yeah, the Canadian Constitution Foundation.
CCF. Yeah, so there you go. So she's just arrived at oh goodness, what is that? Osgood.
Yeah, Osgood Hall in Toronto.
Oh, there you go, for the hearing. And so she's going to be doing tweets. And she said that it was a beautiful courtroom, but she might not have much data to keep going. And at the time, I don't know if anything new has developed since I looked at it, but she said Peterson was not there or not visible at the time. He's not required to be there, but you never know if he was going to pop up. But how do you think this is going to go, Tamara?
It's interesting because we've seen this throughout the COVID hysteria, right? With the regulatory colleges for doctors, like medical doctors and surgeons. So here in Ontario, we have the CPSO. And we saw them really compel the speech of seasoned opinioned experts and people with extensive expertise in their field and, years under their belts treating direct patient care. And we saw bureaucrats who sit up on their high horse in an office compel the speech of these individuals treating patients on the front lines. And so this is the exact same thing, just with psychiatry instead of medical doctors. And I think that Peterson has an advantage here, though, in that he took a really hard stance, even prior to his investigation, whereas, some of the medical doctors involved in the persecution against them were not prepared for any of this. Like, they're not politically minded. They are evidence-based. They never had any of these interactions with their college before. This was all kind of news to them. Whereas Peterson's been in this sphere, in this realm. He's faced heavy criticism, tons of backlash for years now on the gender ideology nonsense that's permeating our cultural fabric. And so I think that he has an advantage here in his court and in this arena of ideas, and that he's he has that tougher skin and he's prepared for it. I imagine he has amazing legal representation. And I think if he's successful, which I think, as I've already mentioned, he has all of these other factors working in his favor and having a little bit more adequately than some of the medical doctors we've seen navigate the same kind of injustice and compelling of their speech. So I think this will set a really good, strong precedence if he's successful. And I just hope that he is, but I think he will be because of that ability to have that foresight and that tough skin to be prepared in this situation.
Well, and when he's been challenged before by institutions, with his previous school and stuff, he comes out on top one way or another, even if canceled in a forum. Look how many people listen to his advice. And it's not even controversial advice. He's very pro-family. He wants men to be present. I mean, it's such a good influence to have. And again, it's not his patients complaining about this, but you're absolutely right about what you said about he's almost the poster for all the people who have been getting punished by their colleges. I did an article for us, I think it's called "It's Not Just Jordan Peterson," because there were so many doctors who are continuously facing their battles with their colleges for speaking out about COVID-19 related issues, and similar to the issues they're targeting Peterson about, connected with the LGBTQ, his opinions on that. There's nurse Amy Hem here in BC, who had a long hearing. It was split into two parts, and we're still waiting to find the outcome of that. But she was a nurse who also is a sex-based right activist, Amy Hem. And so because she advocates for safe spaces for women and children and women in prison and those kinds of things, she herself was also, sort of vilified from, it's usually keyboard warriors that are, not liking what they're saying on Twitter and then just going and trying to bury them. And she's got, children. Here's a mom. I believe she's a single mom, at least last time I interviewed her. And you've got these cancel culture mobsters just trying to destroy a woman, who's standing up for other women. It's so sick.
It is. Yeah. And I guess the crux of the issue here is that Peterson refuses to engage in this re-education program. His college, his regulatory body is trying to compel onto him to shape the way he will speak on social media. And in this article that we have written up on the website from our contributor, Alex Dell, he takes a quote from Peterson. He says, "I'm not participating in it anymore. Take my license if you must," because I guess he hasn't actually been in clinical practice since 2017. So he's been touring the world as a thought leader, speaker, etc. So he says, "Take my license if you must." At this point, it would be a relief to not, and like that is so interesting in Canada in 2023 that you have an independent thought leader saying, "Take my license." It would be a relief because then you're no longer bound by the chains of censorship and arbitrary rules and enforcement by your regulator. That's profound.
Yeah, it's profound. It's very concerning. And I think your sound's cutting out again. And again, it's something that the little guy isn't able to have broadcasted as big as Jordan Peterson. So we're going to be watching this closely, and everything that we've already covered on it is, I believe, at savepeterson.com or .ca. Sometimes it's hard to keep up with the end of the URLs, but check it out if you don't know the story or you want to know what's next, because we will definitely be keeping an eye on it very closely. Next on the list, we have some more on, this time it's on parental concerns that are mounting as school boards defend radical gender ideology. And so here we go.
Yeah,
I'm
so
sorry,
this is
I
a
butchered your
revamp
name.
of. Sorry, I don't know if my sound is working or my screen. It looks like it's kind of cutting in and out. I wonder if we could go to an ad break, and I'll just kind of pivot quickly here and see if I can fix my technological woes before we hop into this.
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. If Efron, thank you.
We are a secular society. We respect deeply people's rights and freedoms, including...
Everyone, how's it going? Just want to talk to you for just a moment. Here at Rebel News, we understand what it's like to be independent, to try and get by without big handouts from the government. Small business owners alike out there understand that like nobody else. That's why we might be able to partner up and do something incredible, bring a captive audience and new eyes to your business or your product. If you think we might be able to partner up, and if you want to support independent journalism while growing your brand to a captive audience, well, reach out to us. You can do so by going to rebelnews.com/advertise.
We are a secular society. We respect deeply people's rights and freedoms, including freedom of expression, freedom of conscience, freedom of religion. And it is unthinkable to me that in a free society we would legitimize discrimination against citizens based on their religion.
My name is Sheila Gunn Reid. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a farmer, I'm a journalist. I'm an advocate for religious freedom, and I'm a Catholic. And the war on Christianity came from me too.
We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
So here's the situation. More and more Canadians are getting vaccinated. But like we know, cases in far too many places are far too high.
Get vaccinated, and you know what? If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's your choice. But don't think you can get on a plane or a train besides vaccinated people and put them at risk.
The police came straight to me and he targeted me, and he took his gun of tear gas and he actually shoot me directly in my legs.
These measures include operating at 50% capacity, the continuous use of masks, maintaining 2 meters of physical distance between attendees from different households, no congregational singing.
No matter what, God will bring us through. And I said, we will not bow down to your gods. We won't.
It was illegal to sing in church. We're going to sing.
Oh, that doesn't look like the Canada you thought you knew.
Do you know what his crime was? He held services on Sunday.
You devils, you evil, wicked people, get out.
I don't care what you have to say.
Ouch! And it took me over 30 times.
We saw our nation drowning, and we couldn't stand by and watch.
Peterson's sermon was interrupted when RCMP sent in the tow truck, prompting him to join the front lines.
RCMP moved in, blocked the driveway, prevented anyone from entering the property.
All right, thanks for bearing with us, everyone at home. Hopefully this is a better connection now and we won't be so glitchy and lagging. Trudeau sounds like such a blubbering psychopath in that ad when he was on his 2021 campaign trail and he campaign issue of COVID vaccine. That's just,
and playing his voice.
Who we have as a leader now.
I think the glitching's happening again, so I'm just jumping in there. But playing his voice when it's contradicting everything that you're seeing visually is so powerful. But I can't wait to see this documentary. But I also get emotional when I watch it because, like so many other Canadians, I was one of the underground churchgoers during all of this. And I never, ever thought that would be a thing in Canada. And it was just such a dark time. And some of these pastors are still fighting this fight today, simply for opening their church to the needy, to people who felt like they needed to go and worship and gather to the point that they could get fined or who knows, go to jail to do so. I mean, that's exactly where a church door should be open if people are really searching for that much. So there's a summer tour, I believe, happening. So we have the website up for that. I don't know if we can put the URL up, but definitely check that out. And then next, hopefully Tamara can talk now because she has revamped a very important campaign.
Yes, I'm just trying to shut down some of my other connections in hope of garnering a stronger one here. So just getting everything set up in order to do that. Sorry, bear with me as we pivot live. But yes, this is a revamp to our campaign at stopclassroomgrooming.com that previously was specific to Ontario and was geared toward Ontario's education minister, Stephen Lecce, basically calling on him to address and assess the necessity and appropriateness of school climate surveys. So like not climate as in the weather, but climate as in the school environment, and student census surveys, which were soliciting the gender identity and sexual orientation of students, in some instances as young as kindergarten, and in other instances unbeknown to the parents without their explicit knowledge and or consent. So now, because this has become such an international issue, really, and it's broadly grown across Canada from coast to coast to coast, we've pivoted the campaign. And now it will go out to all of the education ministers all across Canada, because we've seen that those surveys, that reporting started, I believe, about 8 months ago. And that issue has only grown from then on, with the pornographic depictions seen in the classroom and school libraries, the infiltration of drag queens to read stories to children under this guise of inclusivity and tolerance. And just in general, the way that these curriculums seem to be going, where we're steering away from reading, writing, and arithmetic, and instead teaching gender ideology and theories instead of facts. And that's the real crux of the issue here, is that a lot of what is permeating the schools these days are theories. They're just theorized ideologues. They're not based in fact. And while the children's actual tangible learning is going down the drain. So parents are becoming increasingly concerned. And of course, when they voice their concerns, they're disregarded as bigots or hateful transphobes. And that couldn't be further from the truth. These are parents who have real valid concerns of their children being radicalized and sexualized in the classroom, unbeknownst to them. And so this petition and email blast campaign and this web page that will serve as like a catch-all for all of our reports is really giving a voice to those parents who are otherwise being slandered, smeared, and silenced.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure I can speak for you that when you first started reporting on this, and myself, we had no clue it was going to get as bad as it is. It's continuously, overwhelmingly disheartening, the emails that I receive. I cannot believe how much this radical ideology has infected all over, every institution. It's not even just public institutions anymore. Now it's private institutions. Often, again, if you follow the money and the backers, it makes a little bit more sense. But this is a perfect example of where Rebel News covers the other side of the story. One thing you will never see so far the state preferred media do when they cover these protests that are popping up all over the country. And even when they discuss, like in my province, SOGI 123, it's the resources that, are allowing these sexually explicit books to run rampant in schools. And the same things happen across the country. Even when they discuss the books and show the books, they will never show the pictures. They will never even verbally explain what is the core issue that some of these parents have, because they need the bigot label to run strong. So Stop Classroom Grooming is such an important campaign. You can go there. It's a one-stop shop to take that URL and share it to educate people, because again, a lot of people don't understand. If you look at the comments of some of the things that came out, like during Pride Day this year, where there was a lot of kids across Canada and different provinces not attending on Pride Day, I was reading the comments and people were genuinely shocked. They just didn't understand. Like some were saying, well, there can't be that many bigots in Ottawa. Like what is this happening? Why are some schools having 60%? I believe it was Ottawa. Two schools had over 60% non-attendance. And so there are even, some of the educators, from what I'm hearing from parents who are talking to principals and stuff, they're just blindsided. So share that URL. And of course, you can chip in to cover our journalism on this very important topic, which unfortunately I think isn't getting any better right now.
No, and unfortunately, I don't think it will until parents continue to make their voices heard and rally and get loud, and perhaps even ultimately start to push back by pulling enrollment, because I don't know what it is in British Columbia, but here in Ontario, the school boards get just shy of $13,000 per pupil per year for their enrollment. And so, as we've already said before, follow the money, and money talks. And so if parents start to take a hard stand against this, draw their line in the sand, the best way would be to make that known by hitting them where it hurts in the pocketbook. And it's unfortunate that it has to get to that point, because you are being disregarded by the school boards and the trustees, who are the only person elected on that entire board that are supposed to represent you, the parent. They're supposed to speak on your behalf. They're your elected official. Everybody else on the board is appointed or placed into that position. So it's unfortunate that the trustees, but I think also parents up until this point haven't been paying attention. And so now that they're paying attention, they can start to take on those votes. Sadly, the votes just happened, at least here in Ontario, in the fall of last year, so 2022. So it'll be another 4 years until there's, it'll be another 4 years. But I think parents are now starting to wake up, get more involved. They've trusted that the system has worked thus far, and now they're seeing that perhaps it's not, and they're being kept in the dark. And so they're getting concerned about that. And I think that's completely fair and valid. I'm not going to call them far-right transphobes for being concerned about what their kids are being taught in school.
Yeah, and I think, the people pushing the agenda have capitalized on the fact that parents are busy. They're so busy. School used to be the place that you could put your kids for 8 hours, make a living, and you not have to worry about your kids. They were safe. It was easy. It's funded by the state. And now we're seeing how that has been hijacked. One example of such coming out of the West Point Grey Academy in Vancouver. I think we have some pictures that I put together for their last 2 years of Pride festivities. But it's just some of the examples. You think your kid, if you're not paying attention to this, you think your kid is going to learn about math and science. But if you look at the curriculum and the expectations of the diversity and inclusivity plans, at least out in BC, there is a significant portion that is dedicated to that. It's fluid, it's throughout, it's like a language. The teachers are being taught a language. So this is Pride Day festivities. I think this was June 10th. But you can just see they've been given these flags. They've always been told to wear colors. And let's think about colors. Let's think about the rainbow and how fun and exciting that is to young kids. And even breaking up the normal routine is always fun for kids if you get a chance to go out or do anything out of the norm. But if you look at the top left, I just want to point out, this is some of the work that they were working on here. It looks like they had to do, if you look at the top left of my tweet there, the picture, but they had to do some projects on different characters who I suppose are the bravest ones you can find in the LGBTQ plus fight. And they have James Charles there. So a child has gone home and I suppose done their research, or whether they did it at home or hidden behind closed doors at school. And James Charles, I mean, if you look it up, has admitted to inappropriate conduct via text messages, flirting with minors, 16-year-old boys. His claim is he didn't know they were minors. But my point is, that's one example of who they're looking up to. And parents are paying at least $27,000 per year for their kids to go to a school like that. And I would say come out social justice sex warriors. And I think we have another example in beautiful British Columbia of an actual Pride march. They look very young. I think we have a video of that we can throw to, if I'm correct, a Pride march that took place. Here we go.
Oh, that's cute.
I mean, I wouldn't be like, do they do this for Canada Day? Do they do this for other celebrations, for other holidays? The only thing I know of is when schools do a walk around the block for Terry Fox. And who knows how much longer that will be ongoing, because he's like a classic white male. So maybe they'll go after him next. But
an inspirational white male.
Why this special interest celebration
too? Sorry, he's wiped off her passport now too. So, the other thing I noticed there is they're just yelling out random letters that I don't think spelled anything. When they're like, "What does that spell?"
Community.
The kids are like, the kids don't even know what it's spelled. Like, are they even learning how to spell anymore? They're just going out and say random things like that. Like, I'm laughing, but it's really not funny. I'd like to know. And this is actually a different school. It's not West Point Grey Academy, but I want to know how many parents knew about that, because I also know a lot of parents don't open their emails. And so I don't know if you've had this too, Tamara, where parents are messaging you and saying, this happened, and I didn't find out about it till after they sent a notice on like the day before. So I wonder how many parents knew about this. And of course, the kids want to participate because it's so fun and it's so exciting. It's one thing, of course, to teach that there's different, sexual orientations. It's another thing to promote this to children and to promote that they're supposed to take a position with it and be these, sex, like it said, sex warriors to defend it. And at such young ages, it's just,
Well, it's the shoehorning of these innocent children into these labels when let them just be kids. Like, again, questioning the necessity and the appropriateness of this does not make someone a far-right transphobic bigot. That is literally just what it means to be a parent in navigating a world with children in it who can't self-advocate. They can't protect themselves. They look to the adults in their lives and their parents to advocate on their behalf and protect them from content and materials and conversations that are inappropriate for them, that they can't logically rationalize or reason. And so that's where, the frontal lobe is not even fully developed until your early to mid 20s, in some instances, even late 20s. And so shoehorning these kids into these labels when they don't even have their reasonable brain properly developed is really, in my opinion, criminal. And so the parents must take a stand and protect the kids. And it's interesting that you say that about the emails, because I'm a parent who does check the emails, but I know so many, like maybe I'm the one-off, but so many parents don't. And that's how this Stop Classroom Grooming campaign actually came to fruition, because it happened to me personally, but I got the email. And so the school sent out an email at 4 p.m. on a Friday that they would be conducting this school census survey. And it sounded benign and fine. And, we're just like assessing the school environment. But I had already been informed through our tips line that these surveys were being put out to students, and they were soliciting, like I mentioned, the gender identity and the sexual orientation of children. And so nowhere in this email did it make any mention of any of that. But my flags were already up, and I knew this was kind of in the works somewhere along the line. So I just revoked consent for my child to participate in it. But it didn't matter, because so they did ask children for their gender identity and sexual orientation. And it didn't matter that my child did not participate in the survey, because they then go out to recess and all the kids are like, what's gender identity? What's sexual orientation? Why were they asking me my sexual orientation? What does lesbian mean? And then you don't have any oversight from any adult during this conversation.
You have kids teaching kids.
Exactly. They're just left to their own devices. And so luckily we have those conversations. We're a very open family.
Yes.
And we keep our kids in the loop about things. We give them age appropriate responses for their questions, and are very forthcoming with information to them, and also giving them pointers on what to look for and look out for and be on the lookout when they're in spaces where they don't have their parents. And so they're already well equipped, but there's so many students who aren't. And that's, I think, where the tragedy lies.
Well, thankfully, my eldest is, she's a leader. She's very alert and aware of all these things. My little guy, I decided to homeschool for kindergarten, because I feel like if you're 5, you don't really stand a chance against this indoctrination. But some of my family members' kids are also in school. And you mentioned about, are they doing this for any other occasion where they're going out and marching and basically being activists? And it reminds me again, and we've covered this as well, of the cancellation of Mother's Day and Father's Day crafts. My nieces, both of them, have not been able to do any sort of Mother's Day or Father's Day crafts for the last 2 years, but they have been guided into pride crafts where they're told to do pride crafts. So it's the easiest example for anybody who's not getting this is, what if religion was being pushed in schools? What if these kids were being told to go and do a march for Christ, which is a thing? And, if we're going to talk about diversity and people being marginalized, crimes against Catholics in Canada went up over 260% in recent years. So that's a community we should be talking about being more tolerant to. So the argument stands the same. Most people can really accept that, hey, that religion shouldn't be pushed on these kids. Teachers, if they are Catholic, should not be doing this with state dollars. But many people just don't see that when it comes to this LGBTQ path. But with that said, as we also cover on Rebel News, unlike the state preferred media, there are many members of that community who stand with this issue, and they want everybody to come together and advocate against it. So,
well, it really opens the perversion floodgates when you start getting into some of these plus denotions and like all encompassing. And many people speculate that this just paves the way for pedophilia. And they're trying to say, oh, well, pedophilia is a horrible word, and they're minor attracted persons, and you can't control who you're attracted to. And it's absolutely appalling and disgusting. But when you start to become part of a protected class who cannot be criticized, then it paves the way for validation, right? Because all of what I see here repeatedly is just the constant need for validation, to be validated in your queerness, in your weirdness, in your perversion, in your fetish. And validating this without criticism or critique is where you start to get into some slippery territory of weird pedophilic affiliations. And that is really grotesque and disgusting to think about. But I think we have to be aware of, and we have to be mindful that that is a route that this could go. And that's not conspiracy territory. That is just logical next steps.
Well, it makes it impossible for a child to be able to set up boundaries. If a man can dress up as a woman and have a child sit near them and talk to them about sexual acts, if that's accepted, there is no way for a child to know whether that person is grooming them or not for a further stage or not. And then when they see their family and their teachers and whatever promoting all of this, of course, they're left to the wolves when a predator comes. And of course, predators who are very skilled manipulators are able to see that they have this opportunity. I've done some reports on that with, one counselor from the States, John Euler, who actually counsels his job for over, I think, close to 30 years, has been counseling inmates, people who've been charged with molesting children. And he says even the inmates or some that come out that are working on, staying away from that stuff are just shocked with what has become normal because, they got in trouble for doing similar things. So it's really sick. It's really concerning. And I do see that a lot of people are waking up over this issue. And there is a lot of unity happening between Muslims, Christians, Jews, and all peoples of faiths are coming together and, really taking a stand. So that's something. Don't mess with the kids.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Well, we are running out of time here. Andrea, I know you have to get to a protest and some coverage outside of our live stream. So let's just maybe touch quickly on this written piece we have from yesterday, where Canadians are spending half of their income on taxes, a new study says. And we'll maybe just pull up that link. The headline or the subheadline here is, in 2023, the average Canadian family of two or more will pay $64,610 in total taxes, representing 46.1% of their annual gross income, which they put at $140,000 and change. I'd like to see what percentage of Canadians actually make that amount. But anyway, so this comes as our government imposes even more taxes on us, right? We have now the carbon tax, which I think goes up. Was it this month or is it next month that there will be yet another hike to the federally imposed carbon tax?
Sorry, I've got a dog. Someone's at the door, so my dog's going a little crazy right now. I'll let you take it over.
This is according to the Fraser Institute. Tax Freedom Day measures the total annual tax burden imposed on Canadian families by federal, provincial, and municipal governments, right? Because this is all levels of government that you're taxed by. They encompass income taxes, payroll taxes, including the Canada Pension Plan, health taxes for a crumbling healthcare system, sales tax like GST, and that depends provincially. You would pay more or less percentage points on that. Property taxes, fuel taxes, and there it is, carbon taxes, sin taxes, and more. And so I guess Franco Terrazzano joined Ezra recently to speak about some of these changes and how just Canadians are really just being taxed out of their, I don't know, for lack of a better word, yahoos. The second carbon tax, the article notes, we'll see, sorry, I lost my place here. Canadians will see significant tax changes in 2023. Higher CPP, so that's the employment and the EI tax premiums by hundreds of dollars, $444 more in carbon taxes, a second carbon tax, I think that recently came into play, and a 6.3% tax increase on alcohol, of course. And sorry, Dre, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say something I'm starting to do because of all of this, and I'm certainly no expert in it. Perhaps I'll find an expert to interview for you guys on the matter. Is, we have to start being wise about, different ways that we can cut back on our taxes. Maybe it makes sense for you guys to start a home business together, so that you can have tax breaks that way. Or sometimes it's about changing your job from being an employee to contractor, if you can do those things. But I'm just saying there are ways that people can sort of fight back against this if they get good advice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Always get good advice too. Don't just trust some random person on the internet. And that goes for us, I guess, too. Fact check, follow up, do your own research. Get some advice from someone who's trained and experienced in their line of work and their field of expertise, because otherwise, who knows where you'll end up, sadly. But we're at 2:00 on the money now. Because I've shut off my data on my other devices, let me just see if there was any super chats to catch up on. Or
I can do that. Yes, we do have a super chat from Spirit Whisperer 2021, donates $10. Thank you very much. That's so nice. Says, hi ladies, I got locked out of Twitter because I said, I hope Castrol's son trips over his growing lying nose regarding the Paul Bernardo lie. Oh dear. Yeah. Did we talk about the Paul Bernardo maybe in a different show?
We did last week. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised though that's what got you off of Twitter, because, it's supposed to be the free speech platform. So sorry to hear that. I do know some people have been kicked off Twitter for things that they would think that they, weren't supposed to, and then later it gets sorted out. So I don't know if that's what's going to happen there, or if you just had a lot of people flag you for that. But yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Hopefully you get unlocked soon.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, we'll wrap things up here. Thanks to all of our viewers at home for joining us, and someone will be back in same place, same time tomorrow to join you for some additional news commentary. Thanks to Efron and Olivia behind the scenes for making the magic happen and for helping me pivot there, dealing with some rural internet issues. Seems like a reoccurring theme, unfortunately, despite many calls to my provider. Thanks to everybody else who works behind the scenes to make sure we have a graphic and a clickable link and all of the moving parts that go into making sure we have a successful live stream. And thanks, Drea. It was so fun to join you and see you, even if only from afar.
Bye, everyone.
All right. See everyone tomorrow.
What do you think is the cause of the wildfire?
I have no clue. It's just really dry out.
Yeah?
It's really hot, yeah.
Not enough rain. It's too dry.
Too dry?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, we had thunder last week, so as far as we know. So that's what caused the fire to start rapidly, and on top of that, we haven't had any rain probably for a month now.
The cause of these wildfires, I would say, is global warming, because we have seen in the past 15 years the fluctuation